I adjusted the cuff of my silk blouse, the fabric cool against my skin, as I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse suite in Manhattan. From here, the city pulsed like a living thing, yellow cabs streaming below, glass towers gleaming in the late afternoon light. Behind me, the room buzzed with assistants checking final details, invitations, lighting cues. Tonight was Fashion Week, and for the first time, I wasn't just attending. I was sponsoring. A flute of champagne rested on the marble table, untouched. My hand still shook when I thought too long about it all. How far I'd come, how far I'd had to crawl. The flashbulbs that would ignite later tonight wouldn't just capture models and gowns. They'd capture the woman who once wore the wrong dress at the wrong time and paid the price for it. The vibration of my phone on the glass counter made me turn. A message lit the screen. For a moment, I didn't breathe. It was from Claire Mitchell, the girl who led the laughter years ago. The message was simple. So proud of you, Sophia. Can't wait to see the show. I let out a dry laugh, more bitter than sweet. Pride? She had no idea what her words had cost me back then. No idea what it felt like to stand in a cheap, hand-stitched dress and have an entire room treat you like a joke. I slipped the phone into my clutch, smoothing my hair back. Funny, I thought. Once, they mocked me for a dress. Now, entire runways move because of me. It wasn't always champagne flutes and marble floors. If I close my eyes, I can still hear it. The echo of laughter bouncing off the gymnasium walls of Lincoln High School, the smell of popcorn from the concession stand, the rough texture of the bleachers beneath my hands. It was junior prom night, and for me, it was supposed to be magical. My mother had worked 2 extra shifts at the diner just so I could have a dress. Not from a boutique, not custom-made, just a simple pale blue gown we found at a thrift shop. I spent hours restitching it by hand, adding lace trim I bought with babysitting money, pressing it until every crease disappeared. To me, it wasn't cheap. It was mine. But when I walked into the room that night, the music seemed to cut out. Heads turned. I caught the glance, the smirk, then the eruption of giggles. Claire Mitchell, the golden girl, always in designer heels, whispered something to her friends, and then the laughter spread like wildfire. Did she raid the church basement for that dress? Someone sneered. Looks like Cinderella if Cinderella shopped at Goodwill, another added. My cheeks burned. I tried to smile, tried to pretend it didn't matter, but my hands shook as I clutched the hem of my gown. I could feel the lump rising in my throat, that horrible weight of humiliation pressing down, threatening to crush me. I slipped out to the hallway, hiding behind the lockers. My grandmother, who raised me after my dad left, had given me a small silver pendant that very night. She'd pressed it into my palm and whispered, "Sophia, real beauty has nothing to do with labels. It's in how you carry yourself." I held that pendant so tightly my knuckles turned white. Her voice was the only thing that kept me from running home in tears. That night, under the flicker of the hallway lights, I made a promise. If the world was going to laugh at me for the dress I wore, then one day, I would create dresses that the world itself would want to wear. It was a vow stitched into my bones, a vow I carried through every rejection, every sleepless night, every scar they couldn't see. After graduation, I left that small town with nothing but a suitcase, my grandmother's pendant, and a sketchbook filled with designs that no one had ever taken seriously. New York City wasn't kind to dreamers, and I learned that quickly. My first apartment was barely more than a closet above a laundromat. The smell of detergent and steam clung to my clothes for months. I worked part-time at a coffee shop, another at a fabric store, and at night, I stitched together dresses under the yellow glow of a desk lamp that buzzed louder than it shined. I was exhausted, broke, and constantly doubting myself. Every rejection letter from design school stung. Every customer who rolled their eyes at my handmade sketches cut deeper than they knew. Sometimes, I'd stare at the subway map and wonder if I should just buy a ticket back home, swallow my pride, and give up. But then came Margaret Lewis. She owned a tiny tailoring shop in Brooklyn, dusty, cramped, and nearly invisible between a bodega and a pawn shop. I applied for a job there, desperate for anything related to fashion, and she hired me on the spot. Margaret was in her 60s, with sharp eyes and hands that moved like magic over fabric. She saw the way I lingered over scraps, sketching designs in the margins of receipts. One evening, she caught me tucking a half-finished sketchbook into my bag. "Show me," she said. I hesitated, my throat dry. "They're nothing, just doodles." She looked me straight in the eye. "Sophia, nothing about vision is ever just." That was the first time anyone outside my grandmother believed in me. Margaret began teaching me how to cut properly, how to choose fabric that moved with the body, how to see the woman before designing the dress. Under her guidance, my clumsy attempts began to take shape. My first real break came when a woman walked into Margaret's shop needing a last-minute dress for a charity gala. Margaret was overwhelmed, and she nudged me forward. My hands shook as I draped fabric over the mannequin, but when the woman returned to try it on, her eyes lit up. She twirled, the hem catching the light, and whispered, "It feels like me." That night, she paid more than I'd ever earned in a week. And just like that, word spread. One client turned into three into 10. Local boutiques began asking if I could design small collections. My nights were still long, my hands still calloused, but every stitch felt like a step forward. I didn't post the success online, not really. I put up modest updates, never showing the scale of what I was building. Part of me didn't want Claire or anyone from home to know. Not yet. Not until I was undeniable. What they mocked once had become my quiet weapon. And with every gown I created, I sharpened it. The ballroom glowed like a jewel that night. Crystal chandeliers dripping light across rows of velvet seats, the stage polished to a mirror's shine. Outside, photographers shouted names, their flashes slicing through the cool evening air. Inside, the buzz was electric. Fashion Week wasn't just an event, it was a spectacle. And tonight it bore my name. "Sophia, they've arrived," my assistant whispered, touching my arm. I turned. Across the room, a group of familiar faces shuffled in, glancing around like tourists in a foreign land. Claire Mitchell led the pack, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor, her smile rehearsed but nervous. Behind her trailed old classmates, and even a couple of relatives who'd once told me I was wasting my life chasing foolish dreams. They didn't recognize me at first. To them, I was just another impeccably dressed woman in black silk and diamond earrings. But when our eyes met, I saw it, that flicker of realization, the widening pupils, the stiffening posture. Claire's smile froze. "Sophia," she whispered, as though saying my name aloud might shatter something fragile. I offered her a polite nod, nothing more. The show was about to begin, and I wasn't going to waste a single second justifying myself. The lights dimmed, the music swelled, and one by one, models began to glide down the runway. They wore my gowns, sleek silhouettes, flowing fabrics, colors that whispered power and elegance. Each dress carried a piece of me, the late nights, the tears, the dreams stitched into every seam. Whispers spread through the audience. I caught snippets. "Bennett, who is she?" "That's Sophia Bennett, the sponsor." "No, more than that. She designed the collection." When the announcer's voice finally rang out, it silenced the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's collection is brought to you by the visionary sponsor and designer, Sophia Bennett." Applause thundered. Cameras swiveled. And there I stood, stepping out into the light. I could feel every eye on me, but I kept my gaze steady, landing squarely on Claire and the others. Their expressions were priceless, mouths parted, eyes wide, disbelief painted across their faces. Claire looked as though the floor had been ripped from beneath her. After the final model walked, I was invited on stage. The spotlight was hot, but I didn't sweat. Instead, I lifted the microphone and smiled. Years ago, I began, my voice steady. I wore a dress that people thought was worth mocking. They laughed because it wasn't designer, because it didn't fit their version of beauty. That night, I promised myself I'd never let someone else define my worth again. The room was silent now, hanging on every word. Tonight, I don't just stand here as a sponsor of Fashion Week. I stand here as a woman who turned laughter into fuel. Every gown you saw tonight came from that moment, born from the very cruelty meant to break me. Gasps, applause, murmurs rippled through the crowd. I let them have it all. The truth, unvarnished and unapologetic. When I stepped off stage, I walked straight past Claire and the others. They reached out. Sophia, wait, we didn't know. We're so proud, but I only paused long enough to meet their eyes. No, I said softly, firmly. You knew. You just didn't believe I'd ever be standing here. And then I walked on, leaving them to sit in the glow of a world that no longer revolved around them. After the show ended, the after-party began in a private lounge draped with velvet curtains and glowing with golden light. Champagne glasses clinked, music thrummed low, and the room swirled with designers, celebrities, and industry leaders. Yet, amid all the glamour, I could feel the eyes of the past still following me. Claire and the others eventually made their way over, hesitating like children caught sneaking cookies from a jar. Claire's voice was carefully sweet, her smile polished. Sophia, we're just so amazed by you. Really? We always knew you were talented. I tilted my head, studying her. Did you? Because what I remember is laughter. The color drained from her face. Around her, the others shifted uncomfortably, searching for words. Some tried to laugh it off. Others tried to change the subject. But I wasn't interested in excuses. You came here expecting the girl you left behind, I said, my tone calm but unyielding. But she's gone. I built this life because I refuse to let your words cage me. Now, you want to be a part of it. The question is, why should I let you? Their silence was answer enough. I took a sip of champagne, then set the glass down carefully. If you want forgiveness, if you want space in my world, there are conditions. Not for me, for you. I turned first to Claire. Stop tearing others down to build yourself up. You'll never shine by dimming someone else's light. Then, to one of my old classmates who used to mock my sketches. Go finish that architecture degree you quit. Stop settling for easy, because easy is what made you cruel. And finally, to a cousin who once told me fashion was a waste of time. If you truly want to be in my life, start supporting dreams instead of ridiculing them. That includes your own. I wasn't cruel. My voice wasn't sharp. But it was final. They stood there, stunned, blinking like they were seeing me for the first time. I could tell some of them wouldn't change. They'd nod, smile, and return to their old ways as soon as the lights dimmed. But a few had something different in their eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or recognition. I don't need your apologies, I said at last. What I need is to know that you've grown. Because I have. And I won't step backward just to make you comfortable. Then I walked away, the hem of my gown brushing the marble floor, knowing I had finally set the terms of my story. The party stretched late into the night, but eventually, the music softened and the crowd thinned. I slipped away to the balcony, the city glittering beneath me like a sea of stars. Cool air brushed against my skin, carrying the faint hum of Manhattan, horns, laughter, the rhythm of a place that had tested me and, ultimately, shaped me. I unclasped the pendant around my neck, the one my grandmother had given me all those years ago. The silver was worn now, its shine dulled from time, but holding it in my palm still filled me with the same steady warmth. I remembered her words, real beauty has nothing to do with labels. It's in how you carry yourself. I thought about the girl I had been, the one clutching the hem of a thrifted dress, fighting back tears in a high school gymnasium. She had been small, uncertain, cracked open by the cruelty of others. But she hadn't broken. She had grown. She had stitched her wounds into something unshakable. Inside, I could still hear Claire and the others mingling awkwardly, trying to figure out how to exist in this new reality where I no longer needed their approval. Some of them might change, some might not. That wasn't my burden to carry anymore. What mattered was this. I had turned pain into art, humiliation into triumph. I had built a life not to spite them, but to prove to myself that I could. I closed my eyes, letting the city's glow wash over me. I wasn't the girl in the mock dress anymore. I was the woman who dressed the world. I fastened the pendant back around my neck, the final stitch in a promise kept. Then I whispered into the night, as if speaking to my grandmother, as if speaking to that younger version of myself. They mocked my dress, but today, the world wears my vision.